Welcome everybody, CJ the Smart Guy here. And today I got a great guest. He's been in this crypto Bitcoin space for a cool minute. He's got books coming out. He's got a long background in the space. He's a military man. Thank you for the service. I know that he's been trying to help the community out for many, many years. And so I want you guys to welcome Trekk with 2Ks to the show. So thank you, Trekk, for coming on, man. How you been?
I'm good, bro. Dealing with life. I'm glad to meet you through Najah. Najah's network is really a good collective of folks and who are actually about like putting in the groundwork. And I see you definitely put in the groundwork. If you can't like run at Najah level and not be about putting in the groundwork, bro. Yeah. Like she all about that, beating the pavement, getting out there talking to folks, and like meeting people where they at connections. And if you're trying to run on her level, hey man, you definitely get the hat tips and all for me, man.
Appreciate it, Najah, man. Yeah. So I went on tour last year. I went to 22 out the 32 or 33 cities that she went to. Man, I saw it firsthand because a lot of people talk about how I'm able to multitask and do taxes and talk and do it. And when I saw Najah do it, on top of that, with all them kids, I was like, oh my gosh. And she's over here selling cryptocurrency, taking questions, saving kids from running places. It was just like, whoa. Najah's got superpowers, if you ask me, and I saw it firsthand. So I know, because we met in Baltimore, correct?
Yeah.
How was the experience in Baltimore? Because when we went there, it was kind of eye-opening. So I'll let you, talk about your experience in Baltimore first, and I'll give you mine.
All right, so Baltimore is an interesting place, bro. Like, you can't explain, like, you know how you talk about, like, let me step back one. In general, when you go into cities, you have the understanding of like, this is the good side of town, this is the bad side of town. And you have the general of, people over here are just in their own cluster, and it doesn't mean that everyone knows everyone per se, right? You have that kind of general understanding when you go into various mid to major size cities, right? Baltimore is interesting because it sits in the transit line of the New York to DC or the DC to New York, or sorry, Jersey line, right? And so it's funny in that even though it sits at this cross section of like, if you coming down, like you could stop in Baltimore, you get here and then you look and you try to figure out like, well, what's really going on here? It's definitely X amount of talented people on the tech end, on the art end, on business end, but Baltimore, between like the city level function stuff going on and like the around the way stuff going on, it'd be like night and day world sometimes, bro. Like, then you have it where Baltimore, somebody made this reference to me, is like Baltimore's like Swiss cheese. It's very pockety, right?
Okay.
So like you can, let's say, all right, you're originally from California, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. My impression of California, and not in regards to me like hanging out or whatever, but just in conversations with people, neighborhoods have a larger swath, like a range of, if this is a bad neighborhood, it is like a sizable section of blocks.
Yeah, for sure.
Baltimore is like, you could walk around the corner and the whole thing change up.
Yeah.
And it'll be like 3 or 4 blocks inside, like 3 or 4 blocks that would be like the property tax is like $500,000. And then you walk across the street and you're just like, yo, let me lock these car doors and everything. And it's so weird like that, where you can go into one neighborhood and it'll be a whole block that's burnt out and empty houses. You go 2 blocks over, the whole house, like the whole block is just done up. Full-size houses, everybody has their yard trimmed. The the borders or the sections of like the let's say economic disparity are so small. Like they're not huge, let's say chasms of, okay, I walked for 10 blocks and I saw only the same thing. It's like, no, you can walk for 3 blocks and it'll switch like night and day. And then there's this whole thing about like over East versus over West. Like when I first came here, I said to somebody, they asked me where I lived. And I was like, oh, I live off of Tawanda. If you've been in Baltimore, you know about Tawanda.
I don't know nothing about Tawanda.
So Tawanda's over West, right? And now I ain't know nothing about Maryland when I first came here. Like nothing. I was like bumpkin leather, didn't know nothing. And so when I first moved here, I moved there and I didn't know it was like the hood. I never had no issues. My neighbors was cool and I was like definitely out of the house a majority of the time. Never had no issues, right? But when I said to somebody, I live on the west side, no, I would live on the east. Yeah, I live on the west side. They looked at me and was like, wait, what? And then the whole rest of the room ears perked up and all of them around. I was like, wait. And then they was like, wait, say that again? Where you live? I was like, I live over on the west side. And it was like, Yeah, because it was a female that had asked me that question. It's one of my best homegirls to this day. But like initially when I came here, bro, it was a learning lesson, man. It was a definite learning lesson. And I say all of that to say, like, even for all of the downsides, like when we had the riots and everything, like Baltimore still has dope people, dope food, some really talented people. On this whole crypto side thing, it's definitely folks who are out here trying to help educate people, who are helping trying to get people to, you know, expand what their options are and what they do in the space. It's funky though because of the siloism. Like, and Baltimore really has this mentality of the siloism thing of like where the county folks look different at the people who live in the city. The people who live over West look different at the people who live over East. Depending on what, like, you know how college is like that reference point you make when you meet people. And it's like, oh, well, you know, what college did you go to? And you're like, oh, I went to this college and I studied blah, blah, blah. Baltimore, they focus on high schools.
Oh, man.
High schools tell your whole family life story for whatever reason. And Baltimore has some of the oldest high schools here. Like, I think East Coast wise or countrywide or something like that. There's like 2 or 3 of them that are like really, really old.
Okay.
And I never really picked up on it until somebody explained it to me one day about the history of the schools and like where they sit and stuff and like the type of people that they've generated that went on to do bigger things in society and stuff. But the high schools are like, that give you a whole jacket on your family too. Because it means like, oh, y'all been over that side of town for X amount of years and generations. But you won't know things like that unless you actually go out and talk to folks and like get that understanding. And again, it took me years to figure out just a little bit of stuff I understand as a transplant to Baltimore.
Yeah. Do you think so when I went out there, I saw a lot of houses that looked like they were abandoned or dilapidated. Is that due to like gentrification? Because you mentioned the property taxes here, and like it seemed as though there's a complete like a takeover of the properties, or you know, some type of deliberate redlining or something. Because I know in Houston they're trying to do it, but do you think that's the issue in Baltimore?
So from my understanding, Baltimore has a couple of things that like make the housing situation what it is here. Excuse me. One is like unofficially it's, you know, it's redlining. But at the same time, it is like that city planning development thing that certain parties are looking to develop some areas, but then not develop other areas, right? Baltimore, I don't know what the number looks like now, but I remember when I first came here and the person was showing me my like spaces to be able to rent or whatever, the what is it? The unoccupied housing of Baltimore was somewhere in the 40% range.
Oof.
And when they said it to me, I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That don't even make sense, my guy. Like, this is a major city. It sits right next to DC. How does that work? And the guy was like, I don't know. It's just, this is what it's come up to right now. And I'm talking back in 2011, 2012, right?
Yeah.
So now, and then once I moved down, because I came down ahead of time to scout stuff out, and once I moved down, and then I started like, you know, driving around the city and getting lost and shit. Sorry. I realized like, oh wow, like this is real. Like he just wasn't making up the number. And so like the other thing to economic, what is it called? Economic, what's the name of the tax thing that you could do where you put money, like a minimum of 10K into economic shelters? No, it's economic, damn, I can't remember the name.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know opportunity zones is where a lot of people are.
Opportunity zones. Baltimore has the largest per square capita of opportunity zones for, I think, either any city or like any state, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is tons of money sitting here, right? But the money is just sitting there as a tax shelter thing, not necessarily to better, you know what I'm saying, certain neighborhoods and communities, as far as building infrastructure, as far as updating dilapidated systems and housing. People park money in this city like crazy. But is the intention to actually develop it and make it to be, quote, comparable to like a New York or Philly or like something with DC? I don't know. I just know that opportunity zones are a major tax shelter incentive, and Baltimore has the most for a city of its size.
Yeah. So just for everybody who's watching, opportunity zones, basically what that means is any capital gains that you have from either your crypto gains or your stocks or anything like that, you could take those gains, put it into an opportunity fund, which will then invest into the opportunity zone. And as long as you buy it, you own it for a certain amount of years and improve on it, you may never have to pay taxes at all on that capital gain, as long as you follow the rules. And the city, I believe it's the governor or the governor of the state or the mayor, they're the ones who choose what areas are considered low income, and those wind up being the opportunity zones. And so if he's talking about they're parking it, sounds like they're putting in the opportunity fund, but then they're not actually spending the money on developing. So man, that's crazy. Because yeah, when I was there, I was just shocked. I was like,
and where you were over west has the largest sections of opportunity zones, bro.
Yeah,
money's being parked, but it is actually going towards development and infrastructure stuff. And then mind you, you got Under Armour here. Under Armour's doing some major like development stuff as far as the downtown harbor area. There's some other bigger big name companies too that they're going, like there's a real estate battle thing going on between Under Armour and a couple of the other like either old school real estate family folks. And then you have the city on their idea of like how they want to develop out, you know, the 30, 40, 50-year plan thing. Because how do I say this? I'm not saying I have insider knowledge, but for the little that I understand and then what I see, for the people that I know here who deal in certain realms, whether they're at the city, whether they've been restaurant owners or real estate people, there's definitely stuff going on here in Baltimore. It's just there's an intention to push it in certain areas and not in others.
Got you. Understood. It's politics. I got you. So, okay. So first, how long have you been in Bitcoin? I know when you showed up in Baltimore, you had the Bitcoin and Black America hoodie. I was like, okay, I see you. And I was like, you know, I know that's Isaiah's because I was repping, you know, I got my hoodie too. And I was like, oh, somebody else got it. You know, I was like, so, you know, how long you been in Bitcoin and, you know, what does that book mean to you?
Okay, so I I was like, I'm gonna give you a little background on something. So the other day, I'm going through some pictures and stuff that I have, right? Because I'm putting up pictures around the house and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I found my picture from basic. I went into the military, do the National Guard route, Little Green Team, Army, blah, 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 all of that fun stuff, right? In 2011. And I'm looking at the picture and I'm just like, yo, 2011? So now I became aware of Bitcoin 2011. Life is happening, things is going on. This is back in my trucking days, right? Mm-hmm. Long hair, faced out, bro. Yeah, back then. If you know me from back then, it's just like, damn, like this is what you are now. Like, yeah.
Oh, don't say that.
But like, I became aware back then from the show called Off the Hook. It's a if anybody know about WBAI or anybody know about Phone Freaking or I forgot what Off the Hook's conference thing used to be, but it was for hackers and stuff. And I just remember they made that mention, and then it was like, all right, what is this thing? I gotta like kind of figure it out, whatever that's about. Now, 2011 happens. Life is doing what the hell it does to me, and I don't actually get involved as far as I went and try to find a wallet or whatever. I get back. I finally, you know, step on it and we're also getting skin in the game by finding a crypto ATM. I think it was someplace in Brooklyn or it might have been Manhattan. And I figured out the wallet thing. And then I got my first one. Have since lost that wallet.
Oh,
that wallet. And so 2012 is like that's the skin in the game year. And I don't even remember what part of the year it was. I just knew that when I look back on the timeline now, it's like, okay, became aware here, got in it here. And I really didn't start doing stuff until I came down to Baltimore, which was like, all right, finding ATMs. And when I tell you, you know how people talk about like, well, it's a store value, it's a payment option, measure of account. Mm-hmm. I was doing all of the fun stuff that we promoted it as back then, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm spending it on stuff. Doing the dollar cost averaging. I wasn't really dollar cost averaging in it back then. I was just getting it where I could get it, you know, working the regular 9-to-5 stuff. And like I said, I lost, I spent, I saved, right? I was doing all of the things, but not in the best of order. I was learning the life lessons of like living in crypto the truest hard way. And let's say 2012 to 2018 was just a whole life lesson of what happens when you don't actually save your seed phrases, what happens when you spend stupidly, what happens when you're forced hand and you got to deal with bills. That was the second shift of life in that 2018 happens. Crypto winter comes in, and when I tell you, I saw at least like a 70% correction in what I had accumulated by the time 2018 came up. And mind you, I just came off my second deployment at that point. And I was just like, all right, bump this, you know, like flying high in 2017, come off the deployment. All right, I'm gonna do it. I was talking crap all of 2017. I'm gonna leave this 9-to-5 thing. I'm leaving, and I was on the civilian side, I was doing defense contracting. And it's like, all right, bet, I'm gonna do it. I jumped out and I had the best laid plan. When I tell you, like, pages of like writing out, like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do to like do the money on this side, and this is what I'm gonna do to offer services, and this is how I'm gonna price it out. I wrote out pages of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of that shit went out the window. And so I'm gonna say this to my folks who are military folks, in that there are things that you don't realize you're going through when you come off of your deployment, and you don't necessarily put things in context until like way the fuck after the fact. Because there are things that I think about now and looking back then and going, oh wow, there were things I didn't realize how they were impacting me and my decision making process. Mm-hmm. Right. So what is it? 2018, I do the do and make the jump. I have my perfect plan, which totally goes to the window, and I learn a new whole set of lessons about being in this crypto space and what it means to actually live in the space versus living off the space. Off the space people are the ones who still keep their 9 to 5. The crypto thing is not does not support their lifestyle of paying bills, taking care of themselves, and dealing with other cost of living things. Those people, respect to y'all, I'm not knocking y'all. The people who live in the space, though, you have to now figure out, how do I actually do something that generates people paying me in crypto or in fiat that I can then get more crypto, which is a whole different learning process on itself, because now you got to figure out, well, what do I know? How much do I really know it? Can I teach it to somebody else, or can I provide a service or product that someone else is willing to pay for?
That part.
So that was a whole nother level of, well, the plan was this, which was originally to be a smart contract auditor, still trying to learn the whole JavaScript coding thing now. But since 2018, I know a whole other slew of things that as a consulting service, whether we're talking about ghost minting in regards to NFT stuff, or we're talking about introduction into the metaverse stuff, or we're talking about basic one-on-one stuff to more advanced stuff of how to operate in the space and like harden your security footprint. Those are the things that I know now. Why? Because of all the ups and downs from the previous years. And those are things that people are willing to pay for, right? But it took me a while to actually figure out, like, where is your niche? Oh, guess what? It's not going to be as being a dev.
Got you. What exactly is ghost minting? I've never heard that term. I know minting, but what's ghost minting?
All right, so it's a term that my homeboy 3D came up with. And ghost minting is basically like, because one of the things that's going with, one of the things that prior to, let's say, the last, let's say 5 or 6 months, right? A lot of creative people, and it's just like business people, wanted to get into the NFT space. But then it was like, well, the technical barrier to entry and the cost of entry, right? Depending on what ecosystem or what blockchain you were doing your minting on. So you had 2 things going on. People who didn't know how to mint, and people who could not afford to go to the popular one, which is Ethereum. And what was going on between Upwork,
WeWork?
No, not WeWork. Fiverr,
yeah.
Right. And I'm gonna jump in a little bit on the tech side, where on GitHub, people were writing out the code needed in order to be able to make that, like, how the trend on that 10K NFT mint, or where you could have like the random generators.
Yeah.
All right, so first thing was, people didn't know how to basically do their own minting, right? And OpenSea and Mintable and Rarible, they came up with their processes on how you do it on their marketplaces, but people were still struggling because it was like, well, I don't know how to draw, or I have the idea to draw, but I don't know how to convert it into that system, right? And so what was then happening is the market opens up to say, well, I'll offer you the service of doing that. In general, it was, well, we're going to go to the, the Ethereum ecosystem, Rarible, Mintable, OpenSea, right? And so what was going on the back end was people were providing a service to mint for people who either didn't have the technical know-how or just had the money and was like, all right, I want to get my thing in on that. Mm-hmm. That was it. So the basic idea behind the ghost minting thing is providing the service, and that's what me and my homeboy 3D call it, in that it's ghost minting, because the other part of it is, depending on the ecosystem, like I can set up the account and the wallet for you, right, that you need to operate that smart contract setup, but it doesn't mean that that's my thing. I can put your whole name and everything on it, so I'm ghosting this process for you. It's also like ghostwriting, but it's an NFT stuff. Got you.
Okay. So you had mentioned, you know, there's some Baltimore people who are out there. I know I saw Leroy out there. I know Jasmine's out there. You know, Jasmine Brunson, Leroy Forbes. Who else is in the Baltimore area that you know that's in the space? DC Crypto. I know he might be in DC.
Well, Ryan is technically in Bowie.
Okay.
Which is Maryland side, but he runs around for sure. There's a number of other people that are here. It's just the whole thing of who looks to be public versus not, right? For example, I'm a part of a group called Baltimore Bitcoin. The guy who founded Baltimore Bitcoin was the first person to have a bar that accepted Bitcoin, that ran a Bitcoin ATM and accepted Bitcoin on the East Coast. So from Florida to Maine, he's the first one. And really smart dude. That group has a number of just, you know, the regular everyday folks, who's a lawyer, who's a small business owner, who does mining. It's not necessarily like people that I could name to be like, oh yeah, you should know this person. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's more one of those, it highlights the cosmopolitan nature of the space. People come from different walks of life. And some people do more of a active thing to promote outside of the local zip code, city area, what they do. But I would actually argue that aside from me in that group, no one actually does the promotion, the active promotion of hey, this is what I do. Gotcha. Everyone else is more on the, I'm involved in it. You know, like there's people who are in on helium, there's people who are in on the whole trading Forex side. Like, it's an interesting group of folks. And it's actually, I want to say, the oldest group in Baltimore. Okay. And you can find it on Meetup. So Baltimore Bitcoin is the name of it. If you're local, like, and you know, we meet up, we talk about stuff. Telegram group is, it's funny, there's like 70 something people in the Telegram group, but I think like maybe 20 of us are the most active in like sharing information, debating stuff, talking about what's going on in the space. And again, like I said, like it's an interesting cross of like regular everyday people. Who's a teacher, who's a lawyer, who's a student, you know?
Got you. And you have a book or two coming out, don't you? Tell everybody about your books.
So my first book, which I did, is called Sergeant Trekk, Life After AIT, When the Real Shit Starts. And that book is not crypto related. The Sergeant Trekk series, though, this is the first one that I came out with. And actually, the person who actually got me to like really push on the idea is this dude named Samson Williams. If you're ever on LinkedIn or on Twitter, look that guy up. He's a funny dude.
Simpson, like the
Williams.
cartoon?
Samson Williams.
With an I or with an A? Simpson or Samson?
Samson.
Okay.
Samsung the phone.
Got you.
Yeah. So Yeah. So funny dude, he really like lit the fire on me about doing the book. I finally did the book, what was that, last year? And that basically is about like, hey, if you're in the military, if you're just joining in, if you've been in for a couple of years, here are some things that you might want to do to help have a more fruitful career, as far as like you making the time in your first, second, or third contract, as far as you first coming in, and things that you don't necessarily get taught. It's more of a, you have to go through the process of, and you'll pick up on certain things over the years. But like, if I could give you some type of heads up on things to, look out for, or things that you might want to keep on the radar. Like, for example, in the military, as far as the Army side is concerned, mentorship is something that is more promoted and endorsed on the officer side of the house versus the enlisted side of the house. And when I say that, that means that if you're, private blah, whatever, versus lieutenant whatever, you have leadership and you have people around you who will be like, hey, you need to get a mentor in order to progress your career. Hey, you need to get a mentor in order to understand how to deal with the cliquism and the politics of how the officer side of the house works out. On the enlisted side of the house, so when you're talking about like who's a sergeant first class, who's a master sergeant, you generally don't get the encouragement or understand the benefits of having a mentor until you get around like E5, which is like being a sergeant, right? And then it really starts coming into play when you're E6 looking to make E7, which is a sergeant first class. But like a real good, knowledgeable person, they'll start getting on you about it from day one when you first get in. And the other part of like, have more than one mentor. Because that way you have at least more than one reference points on how to deal with the situations as they come up within your career. Another thing is just like the importance of the education. Even if you don't look to go to school, there are other things that you can do as far as educating yourself that do help for your career, right? And the other part of, while you are in this thing of, wearing the uniform, there are educational advantages that you can take while in uniform that will benefit you on the civilian side. And generally speaking, it does apply whether you're active duty, right? Or whether you're in the reserve or National Guard element. And there is a difference between reserve and National Guard. So that's a whole like kind of other thing to it. But I tried to like explain out some of the basic cross things, that it doesn't matter what side you serve on, and it doesn't even matter what uniform your color is. Like, these are just things across the board that, in the overall will help your career experience. And then when you finally do exit out, you don't look back and be like, man, I woulda, shoulda, coulda, or, oh man, like I wish I would have did more of.
Yeah, I know that adjustment from military life to civilian life for some people is very, very difficult. Whether they've been to war or not, is just a whole different, mindset, and the way that people are treated, and it's just a whole different thing. So I'm sure that can bring a whole lot of value to people for sure. If there was one thing that you want to tell the audience, what would it be before we wrap it up?
In general, or just in relation to crypto?
Just, whatever's on your, whatever you feel on the inside, what would you want to tell the people?
This decade is going to be a lot of ups and downs. And I got a homeboy who says like, when things are down, that's when you're like in the lab cooking up, like trying to figure out how to better yourself, your understanding, your knowledge, your abilities. And when things then do come to light and things blow up, like that's when you're just going to coast. And for what's going on right now, I think that, folks would have a more advantageous advantage of, while things are down, take the time to learn what's going on with this crypto thing. I'm not telling you have to be in a certain thing. I'm just saying, take the time to at least learn what is going on, what is the difference between these different metaverses and these NFT platforms and the different wallets. There's some things that are going to start playing out with the wallets probably around 2025 that wallets are going to matter more than people think. I'll say it that way. They're going to matter more than people think.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you for the knowledge. Thank you for your insight. The people were so amazing. The talent, I mean, when they were doing their performances, like the musical performances, those were like A1. I was like, oh man, this is lit. And it was very confusing to see the dilapidated houses with this much talent. And it was Baltimore by far was the most confusing city I went to, just in terms of, I don't understand. It doesn't look poor, but it doesn't look rich. It's by the port, it's by DC, it's famous. It was a big question mark. So appreciate for getting some of that insight, and good luck to you. Good luck on your book. Trek with 2Ks, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you for having me on, bro. Like, hopefully we can catch up too sooner than later in real life. So thanks, bro.
Most definitely. Take care, y'all. Peace.